On this week's Gridiron Report, we have a Detroit Pistons offseason debate, the Detroit Tigers officially hitting halfway throughout their season, and some devastating Michigan State basketball roster news. So let's get into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yo. In the heart of the city where the lights grow dim. Grit and grind, every inch, every rim. From the underdogs rising to the legends that win. It's the grit iron report, let the games begin. Every highlight's a journey, roads paved with fire. Sweat, tears, and hustle that never expire. From the rookies on the rise to the old hands retire. Grit iron is the place for fans to conspire. Hustle on blast, beats thundering loud. Champions are born from the roar of the crowd. The Gridiron Report, where the stories are proud.
Welcome to your Gridiron Report, your Lions First All Detroit Sports podcast presented by Mic Drop Studios. Today is Wednesday, June 25th, and we have seen the landscape of the NBA, specifically the Eastern Conference, change quite dramatically over the last month or two, even outside of the Detroit Pistons.
Been pretty crazy, and like a lot of it's due to injuries, which sucks for all those players. I can break that all down, but yeah, I mean the East has transformed so much, and in my opinion, Tyler, like the East has never been more wide open. Like you look at Jason Tatum going down, and the Celtics, I really just don't think they're a true contender without him. I think they still have a lot of talent without him, and they can, they're still probably a playoff team. I just don't think they're a true contender. So Celtics out. Then you look at the Pacers, just a magical season for them. And I was, they were really easy to root for, honestly, even though the Pacers are huge rivals of the Pistons. They were a great feel-good story. Then Halliburton goes down in Game 7 of the finals, just absolutely brutal. I definitely think that the Pacers, without him, they're just not as good. He's the heart and soul of their team. So Pacers out. Then you look at the Bucks. Obviously, Dame going down with a very similar injury that absolutely sucks for him. Love Dame. And then Giannis might get traded. The Bucks might be in just a full rebuild. I never really saw them as too much of a contender. Seems like they've been kind of spiraling for a few years now, but still, they have star power, and probably not anymore. So, Bucks rebuild. Sixers. Look at the Sixers. Embiid might retire. That's literally insane. The Sixers look to be in some kind of mini rebuild themselves. Seems like they absolutely spiraled this year when Embiid didn't really play. So I just think they're not a title contender, at least not now. They're in a mini rebuild. You look at the Knicks. Knicks are a good team. They also don't have a coach. They just fired their coach. So who knows what's going on with them? I think of all the teams that I just mentioned, the Knicks are probably in the best position to win just because they do have all that talent. They really just need a coach, but still, man. So and then you look at teams like the Magic that are going all in. They traded all those first round picks for Desmond Bane. I really think that because the East is so open, this might be the time to just shove your chips in the center and know that if you're the Pistons, you have an amazing core. You have a very young core. You probably are one superstar away from possibly winning the whole damn thing, certainly being one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. So I'm going to open it up for debate. That's the landscape right now. I want them to go all in. I'm looking at your eyes. You might have a different opinion.
So we knew for a while this was going to be the craziest offseason, just the way that some of the old guards being passed and these newer up-and-coming teams are emerging. And then also on top of that, you had some of the contracts and all this stuff. We knew it was going to be a crazy offseason. All the professionals and analysts were saying it's going to be the craziest offseason we've seen in the last 10 to 15, 20 years. And that's without all those injuries. So you just walk through kind of all those injuries in that, like, it's kind of, in my opinion, this Achilles injury that we're seeing all these superstars go down with is almost becoming like Tommy John, in which you see the superstars that they have the Tommy John surgery, and you can almost immediately say that they're going to be out at least a full year, if not two. You're looking at like a full 2 years to try and get back on track and at least get back into game shape and where you were before. So with that being said, you're right. This is a time that, like, we don't necessarily have to do anything, and we can just kind of run it back. The big debate this offseason is like, are we going to run it back, or are we going to add to the core, decide of which of the free agents we're going to keep and then add a superstar? It's kind of, in my opinion, it kind of amplifies. It says we should do both. Like, I can see your side and what you're saying, like, push all the chips to the center of the table. This is our time. You just saw, like you said, the Orlando Magic did it. They needed three-point shooting badly. They're basically an only defending team. They got one of the best three-point shooters in Desmond Bane. They're doing it. They're going all in. But on the other side, you say, like, we could just run it back. We know we're going to be better running it back next year because you're just simply adding Jaden Ivey, who's having an insane year. You're adding him. You're adding a healthy Stu. If we even had a healthy Stu, we probably maybe can take down the Knicks in that playoff series. Adding a healthy Jaden Ivey, you automatically are better than you were last year. That's just it. And you topple that on top of like you just walked through all those teams that are just getting worse simply by injury. Maybe that does mean you should just run it back. So I see both sides of it. And honestly, I think whatever agenda you're looking to push, this fits right into your agenda. You can take this and really drive your point home. So it just makes the offseason that much more interesting. And Trajan Langdon has that many more options at his disposal, because on top of it, are any of these teams going to tear it down and start that rebuild? You talked about the Celtics. Without Jason Tatum, I agree with you. They're not contenders, so are they not going to be contenders for the next year and possibly into the year after that? Or are they going to do kind of a mini rebuild, mini teardown? Are there any pieces you can pick up from those teams? It's a great debate, and honestly, it's adding into one of the best NBA off seasons already.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think if you're Adam Silver, you're like licking your chops not only this NBA Finals going 7 games for the first time in almost a decade, but then you have just so much drama and entertainment just in the offseason and all these moves. And it's really making the NBA, an extremely, extremely relevant league, as if it wasn't already. But yeah, he's got to be licking his chops. So yeah, and it's really interesting, Tyler, because like we talked about this on the pod like maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I was on the camp of, you know what, let's just run it back. If you're the Pistons, you have Jaden Ivey coming back. And now I will say I'm shifting. I'm just looking at, a guy like Devin Booker on Suns team where they're already blowing it up. They already just shipped off Kevin Durant. Like, do they really want to be mediocre at best and waste the rest of Devin Booker's, his prime? He's 28 years old right now. I think he turns 29 towards the start of this upcoming season. But I mean, if you're the Suns, like, do you want to waste all those years? By the time you're good again, Booker's going to be irrelevant, or you're going to have to ship him off. So I just feel like, if you're Matt Ishbia, you kind of have to blow it up. Like you honestly, you really fucked up getting Bradley Beal. They shipped off a lot of picks. They don't have assets. They need to start getting these assets back and, going into a rebuild if you're the Suns. So yeah, I think now is a good time to trade a guy like Devin Booker when you can still get an immense amount of value for him. But I think that they don't have all the leverage in the world anymore after already trading Kevin Durant. They're definitely going to get more first-round picks than KD. Just look at the age difference there. But, if you're the Pistons, I'm pretty sure you don't have to sell the farm to get Devin Booker. I don't know how many first-round picks it's going to take, but I don't think it's going to be 5, and that's crazy to see because now, Desmond Bane kind of reset that market a little bit, but I think you could probably get it done for less than 5, but you are going to have to throw in a player, and I think that player might be Jaden Ivey.
Yeah, so let's roll this into the Devin Booker talk, because on Twitter and everything, that's the name that keeps coming up, right? Devin Booker's been tied to Detroit for years, honestly, going back as soon as, to the Troy Weaver era. Like, when are we going to get Devin Booker back in Detroit? So Devin Booker, 6'6" combo guard. He is 28 years old, out of the University of Kentucky. He's from Grand Rapids, so he grew up in Michigan. He wanted to go to Michigan State. He kind of was waiting for that Tom Izzo to come and swoop in, and I think there was something along the lines of money being thrown around and how Tom Izzo recruits and stuff like that he ended up going to Kentucky. Didn't come here, but his dream was always to play for Tom Izzo and Michigan State Spartans, come back and play in Michigan. You see him all over all over Twitter all the time. He's wearing the Old English D like you have on right now. He's wearing Tigers jerseys, Lions stuff. He's always in here in Detroit. So like, the connection is there, and I get it, but it for the longest time was very tiresome, and that like, Devin Booker's an all-star. Like he's a fantastic player. In order to give up what we need to get him, it was not realistic with where the Suns currently were and where the Pistons were, where the Eastern Conference was at the time. So like, it never really made sense. Now that he's coming up again this week, because like we just went through, the Eastern Conference is so wide open, it's insane. And then also they had the Suns sold on Kevin Durant for basically peanuts. So people are starting to think like making that connection again. I get that. So just last year, let me go career wise. Devin Booker is averaging 24.4 points, 4 rebounds, 5.2 assists, 35% from 3, and around 3 turnovers per game. Last year specifically, again, playing alongside one of the best players in the NBA, and Kevin Durant, averaged 25.6 points, 4.1 rebounds, 7.1 assists, 2.9 turnovers. but had a career low 33% from three. So 33, like I said, career low, not terrible, but for a shooting guard, you definitely want that to be a little bit higher. So then the question is, there's two questions, in my opinion. How would he fit on this team, and what would it take to give him up, to get up? We'd have to give up to get him. So first and foremost, how he would fit on this team. Last year, he spent 73% of his time at the two guard, at the shooting guard position, and 26% at point guard. Kind of fits in perfectly for what Detroit needs, right? Because we're looking, and we went out at the trade deadline and got Dennis Schroeder as that secondary point guard, got a secondary ball handler, so we can play Cade off the dribble. Cade showed last year that he can perform really, really well, especially around the perimeter and the catch and shoot threes and stuff like that. So you're looking for someone to take a little bit of play handling or ball handling out of Cade's hands and do that. And then maybe you can shift Cade out, give him a breather. Devin can move to point guard, run the initiation, and be good there. So that fits. The year before that was actually very different in that Devin actually played 91% at point guard. So primarily the entire season, he was playing point guard just 2 years ago. So it kind of depends on what he wants to do himself. If he wants to go back to the point guard position, if he likes to staying at the shooting guard and then play kind of that secondary ball handler or the primary when Cade gets a breather, kind of that same role that we're talking about Jaden Ivey possibly doing and kind of switching out with Cade Cunningham, right?
Yeah, I think so. So I mean, it's almost like you really can't have Booker and then keep Jaden Ivey because there's not enough playing time between those three. I mean, J.I. he's a starter, and he proved this year that he's absolutely up to that caliber. He shot over 40% from three this year. So yeah, I mean, I think there's absolutely a case to be said of just rolling with Jaden Ivey again, and knowing that in age 23, he's probably going to take another leap forward. He already took a really big leap forward last year shooting, but I do think if you're trading for Book, then Jaden Ivey is a part of that trade for sure. I don't think the Suns will do it without. So yeah, I don't know how many first round picks it would also take. I wouldn't want to give up more than 3. I'll just say that. Especially knowing that the Pistons don't own their pick this year, so it'd have to be like a 26, a 28, and a 2030 pick or something. But yeah, I just know that you mentioned Devin Booker averaging 24 points in his career. That's also counting his rookie season where he averaged significantly less. So if you take that out, he's actually more of like a 27 point per game kind of guy, 26 points. So I mean, that's just such an elite scorer to pair alongside Cade Cunningham, who we know can score at will. He can assist at will as well. He's just that all-around playmaker. So having 2 superstars on a team, it's just hard to stop. And we saw it this year in the playoffs when Cade is shut down or when he has to take all the shots and there isn't another go-to scorer. It's just not going to work long term. So I think they need another scorer. And that might be Jaden Ivey taking another step forward. But regardless, they need an elite scorer.
Yeah, so that brings me to my second point in that, so does Devin Booker fit? Yes, with an asterisk, and that, like you said, I don't think he can coincide with Jaden Ivey. So then the second part is, what would it cost to give up? And it's hard to gauge what it would cost to give up because we just saw Kevin Durant go for damn near nothing, and there's differences. Kevin Durant's much older, coming off, he already suffered the Achilles injury a few years ago. He's kind of somewhat comes with a little bit of a circus. He's kind of, in some sense, a polarizing player. And you saw him go for next to nothing. But then you saw, like you said, Desmond Bane, who is kind of an undersized but real strong three-point shooter, go for a king's ransom. And so it's really hard to say, okay, if we were to trade him, I mean, the Houston Rockets kept together their core without Jalen Green, who I think a lot of Houston Rockets fans kind of already assumed he wasn't part of that core. So they essentially got Kevin Durant without giving up anyone in their core and without giving up did they even give up a first round draft pick? I don't even remember. So if you can promise me we can get Devin Booker without giving up really anyone in our core and not a first round pick, or be a little bit more for that because like you said the age is different, then I'm all in. But if it's going to be let's be
realistic here.
Okay, but
it's completely different. You can't even compare them. And the Rockets did give up the number 10 pick.
If it's going to be Desmond Bane, then if it's going to be like the Desmond Bane side where you're giving up 4 or 5 first round draft picks, I could not be more out on that. So I get you're not going to get the same as Kevin Durant. I hope you're not going to give up as much as the Magic gave up for Desmond Bane. Meet somewhere in the middle there, I guess maybe. Last year for Phoenix, Devin Booker had a +2 expected wins on the court. So we talk about that war in baseball. Essentially, he was kind of responsible for 2 wins on the court versus off the court per cleaning the glass. Defensively, points per possession, The Phoenix Suns were plus 3.9 when he was on the court as opposed to when he was off. His defense is kind of sus. It is not necessarily known for defense, but and everything I was reading on Reddit boards and everything about him is that it's all kind of effort driven. And with one thing we know about Phoenix is that they probably didn't have the best culture there. I love Matt Ishbia, Michigan State guy, does a lot for the program. Maybe not running the greatest culture program there for the Suns. So you get him in a good culture fit, like the ability for defensively is there, but it seems like maybe the effort isn't. So you get him in like a JB Bickerstaff program alongside guys like Isaiah Stewart and Ron Holland and Asar Thompson. Like that can definitely, I think his defense would be better. I just don't know if I'm comfortable giving up on Jaden Ivey for an older Jaden Ivey, if that makes sense.
An older and much better Jaden Ivey.
Much better, but given the few years, they definitely could get there. So Jaden Ivey is just 22 years old, 23 years old. Devin Booker, like you mentioned, is about to be 29. So, you have 7 years. In that 7 years, Jaden Ivey is already shooting the three ball better than Devin Booker. Devin Booker averaged 25 points per last year. Jaden Ivey only was about 17 and a half. So yeah, you got about 8 points per game there that you're losing. In my opinion, Jaden Ivey seemed to be spacing the floor a lot better than Devin Booker was able to. So is the amount
you have to give up? 30 games too, man. 30 games and coming off an injury, like it's a small. He shot great, 40% from three in 30 games. It's also only 30 games. So I don't know. I mean, that's not to say that he's going to be shooting 40% from three for a full season.
So, I mean, yeah, there's that huge question mark. Like, if we didn't have Fred Vinson, working with him, and we thought like maybe this was just a fluke, I could get on board with that. I personally think he has taken that next step. I think he showed me it is just enough. Like, I'm talking like 3 or 4 games past the fluke, in my opinion, and we'll know a lot more next year. But I think as of right now, he spaces the floor better. He shows he's just as clutch. We talked about it last season that and before Ivy went down, he was the guy we were going to in clutch situations, and Cade really wasn't until he went down and Cade hit that Miami shot. But I don't know if I were to come to you today and say, okay, I'm the Phoenix Suns, I want 2 firsts, Jaden Ivey, and 3 seconds for Devin Booker. Even though the Pistons just got back on top of their first round draft picks, you mentioned we don't have ours from this year. Finally, we have control of our own first round picks. I'm talking 2 firsts, Jaden Ivey, 3 seconds. Are you saying no if you're the Pistons?
I'm saying absolutely yes. I think that's a bargain. That's a steal to get Devin Booker for just 2 first rounders. Knowing that, I mean, he's just right in the prime of his career right now, and he's got a lot of good years left. And even, I mean, guards, we've seen it like with a guy like Steph Curry, that they can still be very effective later on in their career. So it's not like we're only getting Devin Booker for 2 years and then he sucks because he's old. He's still going to be very good and very effective. So I would definitely do it for 2 firsts. I think that'd be a bargain.
So, okay, it's a bargain there, but kind of rolling into our next topic, and that if you bring on Devin Booker, there's a big chance you're losing Jaden Ivey in the trade, obviously. Big chance you're losing someone else part of that core, not in the trade, but because you can't afford them anymore. And that kind of rolls into the luxury tax and the apron punishments and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I will break down the luxury tax and all of that. Before I do that, just one point or argument that actually probably supports you, Tyler. You never want to be selling a player or trading a player low. You always want to, you want to buy low and sell high, right? I mean, that's art of the deal. I will say that right now, Jaden Ivey coming off, an injury, there's a lot of question marks. The Pistons, I think, would be kind of selling him low, which you don't want to do. Yeah, so just kind of probably a dumb thought that I just thought about on the spot, but probably does kind of more support your argument, Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, and like we said, it's kind of a big question mark. So if you're the Suns, you could look at that and benefit of you saying but you don't know, maybe selling low, but we don't know if what we saw is real. So question mark for them. Same thing for us. I mean, the Pistons have been on the wrong side of trades for decades now. We traded away Chris Middleton, for God's sake, and then he became an all-star with the Bucks. We were on the opposite side when we traded for Blake Griffin and got a few good years out of him. He was our last All-NBA player, I believe. But then that kind of ended up putting the program back. So we talked about it a few weeks ago, both the Pistons and the Red Wings are in a spot where it's extremely important to decide when you're going to put all the chips into the middle. If you go too early and then suddenly, you weren't ready and you have no more assets and you had to do a rebuild right then and there. If you go too late, your guys are too old, they're past their primes and the window closed. So it truly is the most difficult spot to put a GM in. And on top of it, you got contracts and your young guys to worry about starting to pay.
Yeah, exactly. And so just looking at the luxury tax and looking at what the Pistons could do, we talked about it a couple shows ago. But if they do stay put and they do sign all of their veterans that had so much success this year, looking at Malik Beasley, who's going to be owed a lot more money. It was he kind of had a prove it season, and he was amazing last year, blew away all expectations. So, you're signing guys like him to bigger deals. If they bring back all of their players, they will most likely be at or just above that luxury tax line that they have been operating under the luxury tax line for years and years now. Tanks, rebuilds, whatever. They just haven't been spending a lot of money. So that luxury tax line, $172 million. If you exceed it, of course, you pay luxury tax. So that's common. There's a lot of teams that are above that luxury tax line but below that first apron, and they're just paying luxury tax. There's no other restrictions or anything like that. Honestly, it's a good place to operate if you have an owner who is willing to shell out a little bit more cash or pay a little bit more tax, which it really does seem like Tom Gores, he doesn't really give a shit about money. He's going to spend money. I mean, we saw it with paying Monty Williams and then paying Monty Williams to get the fuck out of town. Tom Gores is going to spend the money. Now, when you keep spending money, you get to that first apron, and that's $179 million. So if you exceed $179 million in payroll, that's actually going to start triggering some major roster restrictions. If you're above this apron, no sign-in trades. You can't use the full mid-level exceptions. You can't take back more in salary in a trade than you send out. So there's some pretty significant restrictions there that Trajan Langdon would have to navigate. And so just a couple teams that navigate above or operate above the first apron, the Nuggets, the Magic, the Knicks, the Timberwolves, the Lakers, and the Rockets, they all are above that first apron. You keep spending, that second apron, that last apron is going to be $189 million. So if you spend more than that, you are not going to have any mid-level exceptions at all. No inclusion of cash in trades. You can't have future first-round pick swaps for 7 years. Traded draft picks can't be more favorable than the other team in the trade. So some very, very heavy restrictions there on top of spending all that money. Teams that operate above the second apron, the Celtics, the Suns, the Cavs, and the Bucks. So that's kind of where we are with the luxury tax breakdown. I think probably that sweet spot, of course, just above the luxury tax, that's going to be a sweet spot. If you're trading for a guy like Devin Booker, I think minimum you're above that first apron, hopefully not above that second apron. But yeah, I think that there's a world where you can operate at or just above that first apron and you're not getting hit with crazy restrictions. And Trajan Langdon, the Pistons GM, can kind of operate that way. But that's where I would see the Pistons falling if they're paying for a guy like Devin Booker, who I think he's due for an extension, and if he does get that extension, he'll be one of the highest paid players in the league on a year-by-year basis. So, that's significant cash that the Pistons are going to have to shell out.
Yeah, it's a great breakdown. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. The NBA, they make it very difficult to watch their games. They do a lot of things wrong. Adam Silver almost very obviously rigs the league every year for the lottery, stuff like that. The one thing they do right is how they operate the teams that can spend. If you look at the NBA, or excuse me, the MLB, you got the Dodgers and the Yankees, who just literally are unlimited cash flow, and their rosters usually support that. They replicate or they reflect that. And so it's really difficult to compete with them. If you're, the San Diego Padres, it's almost impossible to work against the team that's right up the road, or the Dodgers, just based on your payroll and what's coming in and stuff like that. The NBA does a great job of making it you can do it. If you want to sign every big all-star in the league, go ahead and do it, but we're going to make it extremely difficult for you. If that doesn't work out and you guys need to add a piece to that or something, we're making it extremely difficult. And the more pieces you add, the more difficult it gets. The NBA does that so well because it really levels the playing field. It gives you a great idea of okay, you just walked us through the first apron teams. Those are teams usually contending teams are around that first apron because they're going to have a star or two, and they're going to sit right there. And then you have the mega competing teams, the Celtics, usually like the Lakers, the teams like those, they're going to be in the second apron. You can identify those teams and be like, their window's starting to close a little bit. As a dumb fan, I can go to that team and say, their window's starting to close, and they're still sitting in the second apron. They're not going to be able to win right now, and they're not with the team they have, and they're not going to be able to make moves to get better in that second apron. So you can then look at that team and say, okay, they got to get rid of this guy, or so you can start to pick apart that team and see who really identify who you can try and target and trade. And as a fan, that's all we can do, so we can try and get that wrong, right?
And I love that you mentioned that. What team spends more than any other team in this league and operates in that second apron? It's the Phoenix Suns. So if there's a team to take advantage of, it's a brand new owner like Matt Ishbia, which, by the way, I think I've talked about it with my friends down here. Not my take. I think it's my buddy Ken's take, but it's still a really good one. That new owners. I mean, if there's a new owner in the league, every other owner looks at it like a shark with blood in the water. Like, they just know that they can take advantage because this new owner wants to make a splash, wants to sell, tickets, whatever, make money, and they're going to do probably some pretty dumb things. And, no offense to Matt Ishbia, but he's kind of taken for a ride by a couple owners in the last couple of years. So yeah. I'm looking at the Suns, and I'm kind of licking my chops. And I think that if you're Trajan Langdon, you can hold their feet to the fire. You don't have to make any moves. It's not like the Pistons are desperate. We talked about this. They're in a really, really great spot. But I think that you could probably get this done for a decently good value. And if that's the case, I'm a huge value guy. I think you take it.
So, okay, we have the NBA draft. If you're listening to this on Wednesday, the NBA draft is tonight. That's June 25th. So even this time, actually, it won't be this time while you're listening to this. It'll be probably the 26th because the second round, I believe, is on the second day. So the Pistons won't be acting unless they trade into the first round tomorrow or when you guys listen to this tonight. I don't see that being the case. I think maybe they'll trade into like 27, 28, but I don't see that being the case. So on Thursday, this could all be irrelevant. And even into next week, when the free agency actually starts, right now, cards on the table. What are you doing right now? Final prediction. You were, like you said, kind of just stay put. Let's run it back. Train. Are you still on that? Are you halfway? Mind you, we got some guys to extend. Are you extending them? Are you going to get a superstar? What are you doing right here, right now? GM Kyle Marino.
I'm getting Devin Booker, and I'm getting him for a great price because the Suns are idiots, and I'm winning the Eastern Conference at the very minimum. That's what I'm doing. And as far as bringing back Vetch, whatever, you're gonna have to make some tough decisions. I think everyone not named Malik Beasley, I'm probably fine with them walking, and that's even counting Tobias Harris. Who I love Tobias Harris, he had a great season, but you can't keep everyone. So I'm fine with having some players walk, and I'm also fine with having Cade and Devin Booker and Asar Thompson be one of the best big threes in the league.
Okay, so in that scenario, you're likely sending out Jaden Ivey and probably Tobias Harris in order to match salaries. So you're losing both of them. You're bringing in Devin Booker. You are extending Jalen Duren this offseason because he has one more year, so you can extend him next year if you want. You're extending him this year?
I don't know. Money-wise, I don't know if the money's going to work out there, but I would love to retain Jalen Duren. I think you absolutely need to keep that pick and roll game going too. I think it's a nice compliment to, having a couple flamethrowers out wide and spacing the floor is you do need to get in the paint and get that pick and roll going. So would love to keep Duren. And then, like I said, there's some guys who, unfortunately are going to be expendable in this scenario, but I'm going all in, man, and I'm winning the East.
All right, so you're bringing in Devin Booker, and you're extending Jalen Duren, keeping Malik Beasley, and then likely losing Jaden Ivey, Dennis Schroeder, Paul Reed, Tobias Harris, or whatever, the rest of the guys, Tim Hardaway Jr. So, okay, I respect that. It's a great it's a great debate that we were just able to have. I'm going to call my shot right now. We're not going to go for anyone of the level of Devin Booker. We're going to extend Jaden Ivey this year. Jalen Duren, we're going to kick to next year. We're going to say one more year. You had a great second half of the season. We need you to prove it in another half of the season. Also, let's see where the landscape is next year. We're going to decide on his extension next year. You're going to bring back Malik Beasley. Probably go a little cheaper on Dennis Schroeder replacement. Let him walk. Bring in someone else that's a little bit cheaper. Let Tim Hardaway walk, and then we're bringing in someone that is not technically going to get people excited, which is a shame, but it's going to be a little bit better. You're probably going to do I'm talking like Bobby Portis, someone that's really doesn't move the needle, but it's probably going to help us win a game or two. So in my prediction, I guess pretty vanilla, I'd say.
Hey, you know what? Like we said, a bunch of times, vanilla is not bad when you have a very young team like the Pistons who are they're in such a good win now mode, but also win in the future mode because they're so young. I think that's not bad. I think you're setting yourself up for quite a bit of success for years to come. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that was 30 minutes on the Pistons. Kyle and I said before we started recording, we could literally do the whole hour on just the Pistons. We wanted to try and avoid that. So let's keep moving and jump into some of the Detroit Tigers. So we are just about 2 games shy of being exactly halfway through the season. So this was a great chance for us to take a beat, look back on the first half, kind of give our overall thoughts on that. If you guys recall, we were trying to find that episode. I was having a hard time finding it. We did go through and gave our predictions on the season, win-loss, what we thought if we were going to win the division, stuff like that. So we can kind of look back on that and then look forward to the all-star voting, stuff like that. So we are almost exactly halfway through the season. Your Detroit Tigers are 49-30. If you remember, we were I think the first team to hit 20 wins, first team to hit 30 wins, first team to hit 40 wins, and now we are on track to be the first team in the MLB to hit 50 wins. We are on pace for 100 wins this season, which is, I mean, we'll go into our predictions in a second. Nowhere near what either one of us thought, and I think pretty much everyone in Detroit was on that same, like, no one expected that, right?
No, not even. I mean, of course not. I think we can go into our predictions just in a little bit, but yeah, I think looking at last season, it seemed like they probably overachieved a little bit, especially down the stretch. It was a magical season. I think a lot of experts, a lot of fans, myself included, were like, you know what, they're probably going to be about the same. Maybe take a small step forward, small step back, but like this is a massive, massive step forward, winning 100 games after I think last year they might have won 87, 88 games. So, yeah, this is sweet. I love how they're playing. Yeah, I think Scooble's on the mound tonight against the A's. So chance to get 50 wins, first team in the MLB to 50. And just, I mean, yeah, overall, I'm so ecstatic about this team. And it's not been perfect. There's been a lot of injuries. I think the boys need to get healthy again, both, a couple of position players and then also a bunch of pitchers who are on the IL right now. So, yeah, it's not been perfect. And I think that at the deadline, you do see some gaps that you could definitely fill, and you don't have to sell the farm. We see trades all the time where you give up your, 6th best prospect, 7th best prospect, and you're getting a very good player in return. That's just the value of these prospects. So, yeah, I think they can go out and make some moves. But overall, man, it's been a stellar season so far.
I was on that team. Like, we way overachieved last year. I mean, we had a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs, and then we went on that magical run. It's only natural to be like, yeah, okay, like that. We caught lightning in a bottle. It was amazing. Everyone's going to remember where they were when all that stuff happened. When Kerry Carpenter hit that home run against Emmanuel Clase, like, you and I will forever remember. We were in my living room going nuts about that. Like, so, and it was natural to be like, okay, it's going to come down a little bit. And so, for our predictions, what you have us on this expected year?
Yeah, so we did our predictions the first week of the season. I predicted 89-73 in winning the AL Central by 1 game. So we know that we are, cruising for substantially better than that right now.
Yeah, and we had your numbers. We had a hard time finding mine. I think we had me sitting us at 83 wins, so I was a little bit less than you. Both of us were, and I was having us fighting for a wild card spot. I mentioned it's going to be kind of exactly like what we thought the Pistons were going to be, in that, like, at the end of the season, we're really fighting for it. We're checking other team scores. We're checking our scores, like stuff like that, to try and see if we can make up some ground. Neither one of us expected this. On pace for 100 wins, comfortable. I think it's 8.5 seat win lead in the AL Central. So just a few stats like to back us up. And I've been on record multiple times this season being like, there's something about this team just a little bit worrisome. And I still am that way, if I'm being honest. I still see some things that scare me, some slumps and stuff, but we still continue to find wins. I don't know how we're doing it, but as it goes across the league. So right now, hitting wise, the Detroit Tigers are 10th in home runs. They are 10th in batting average. In OPS, they are the 6th team in OPS in the MLB. And then switching over to pitching, the Detroit Tigers have an ERA that's 5th in the MLB with a 3.5. And then finally, for strikeouts, they are 12th in the MLB with 667. So really just the middle of the pack, stats-wise, really middle of the pack. And yet they're still getting it done every single night. It just seems like random guys are stepping up. You have Riley Green, who really turned it around. And he himself, and I see in our show notes, you have some numbers for him. He is about one of the most confusing players I think I've seen, because he could not be more hot right now. And yet I believe he's leading the MLB in strikeouts. And so like there's two different camps of people that are like arguing that he's striking out too much. And then there's the other side of the camp that's like, well, look at these other numbers. Like, I don't care how much he strikes out. He's on an absolute tear right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have a guy like Riley Green who I think if you look at the stat cast, I mean, he swings up on balls like probably more than almost any player in the league. Like, so, he's trying to hit a home run on every swing. And I think he's kind of admitted to that too. He's your power hitter. He's your, number, four spot a lot of times in the lineup. Yeah, I think he's one of your best hitters, but you want him swinging for the fences every time. So, yeah, I mean, would I have liked his strikeouts to be a bit lower and not leading the league? Sure. But, I mean, look at his month of June, like 360 average, OPS of 1.037. So OPS above 1, 4 dingers and 19 RBIs. So, yeah, and actually the funny thing is that 4 home runs is probably a bit lower than you would expect for a guy like Riley Green in an entire month. But, yeah, I mean, he's raking, so I really don't give a shit about the strikeouts when he's swinging that well.
Yeah, so you look at the other guys. Colt Keith had a real slow start to the season. He's now hitting 277 with an 818 OPS since May 1st. We have him playing third base at the moment right now, first time in his career doing that. So if he's able to hold his own defensively, he could be that answer we've had at third base for quite some time. Torque is slumping a little bit, but we've seen him slump a few times this season. He's able to pull himself out. Gleyber Torres has been absolutely awesome. The kind of concerning part is a little bit maybe more the pitching. We talked about the injuries that we've had, Jackson Jobe going down. Casey Mize got pulled from his start the other day, but then it kind of came out that he was just dealing with cramps possibly, so he should be okay. Jack Flaherty has back-to-back games in which he's allowed 7 and 8 earned runs, so real brutal there. So that's where I'm a little bit concerned, but like I said, and like we've said, like you've said every time you've talked me off the ledge, is that we have that 7.5, 8.5 game lead in the AL Central that like we had that lead for a reason. We can start to maybe, you don't want to ever fall too much on that, but we can start to use that cushion a little bit to get healthy, not worry about some guys and try and push them for injuries and really start pushing our focus towards the postseason now that we're about halfway through the season here.
Yeah, and I just look at teams like Cleveland and KC and Minnesota, and like they're just all three are not playing well, and I don't think it's a small sample size. I think we're halfway through the season. I just don't see any of those teams being contenders. I don't look at those teams and say those are wild card teams. One of them might squeak in, but yeah, I mean, they all have negative run differentials by quite a bit, and yeah, I don't know. I'm not super impressed. So yeah, that makes me feel a lot better that the Tigers might be going into a bit of a average spell right now. I'm not even going to say a skid, but they're 5-5 in their last 10. They've lost a couple series, but yeah, I'm just not worried at all because all the other teams in the AL Central, they're kind of looking like shit right now.
Yeah, so as it sits, as we are going into the halfway point in the season, we have the All-Star break coming up soon. So if you guys haven't gone out and voted for our Detroit Tigers, make sure you go out and do that. We will try and put a link to that in the show. But as it sits right now, the Detroit Tigers would have 3 starters in the MLB AL All-Star team. So that's not even on the roster. It's 3 starters. And say what you want about the game. We've talked about the formation for the NHL being an absolute hit. They talked about the NBA starting to take over that same strategy and process to try and get there. These guys will probably only play an inning or two, but right now, as it sits at the moment, for first base, you have Spencer Torkelson, who is in 4th place for first base. It doesn't seem like he'll be able to catch Vladimir Guerrero at 1.1 million votes. Spencer Torkelson's only at about 800,000. So it doesn't look like Spencer is going to end up making it for first base. But second base, you have Gleyber Torres, who is right now slated to be the starting second baseman for the All-Star team. He has 1.1 million votes. Second place is 800,000, so it seems like he's going to be able to hold that lead and be the starting second baseman for the AL team. At shortstop, you have actually surprisingly Trey Sweeney in 5th place with a minimum 323,000 as opposed to the A's Jacob Wilson's 1.1 million. So Trey Sweeney is someone I would probably put on the struggling side of the Detroit Tigers. He's part of the slumping team there. So kind of surprising that he's even on that list, but he's clearly not gonna catch him there.
He's not an all-star.
Third base.
No, not at all.
No. If he was, I would probably call the whole thing into, call it all sus. But third base, you have Zach McKinstry in 3rd place for third base. He's at 500,000 votes. Jose Ramirez for the Guardians is at 1.7 million votes. So no chance Zach McKinstry catches him. But third place, there's a chance he could make his way into a reserve position there. Outfield is where Detroit has their other two all-stars. So Aaron Judge obviously leading the way with 2.6 million votes. He probably has the most votes out of anyone. But then Riley Green and Javi Baez are the number 2 and number 3 outfield vote getters. So Riley Green with 1.3 million and then Javi with 900,000 as an outfielder. So interesting because Javi played a lot of outfield for the Detroit Tigers this year. He then, with Trey Sweeney struggling, ended up going back to shortstop. So he's been playing shortstop for the past few weeks, which is his natural position. But to be back in the outfield for the All-Star game is super funny to me. And then you have Kerry Carpenter, who's also on this list at 7th, an outfielder votes. He has 664,000 votes. So it's just interesting. I think Dylan Dingler is 3rd in catching. Almost
close.
got me. He's
close.
3rd in catching, so he is also on the list. It's awesome to see the Tigers just scattered up and down all these lists, but then to have 3 starters is something that we haven't seen for Detroit. I mean, there was years we were sending a guy who was barely an all-star just because we had to have a representative.
Oh, yeah. And that's not even talking about pitching, too. I do think that Skubal is going to be your starting pitcher. Max Fried might have like slightly better numbers. Some of his numbers might be better if you look at it. But overall, I think Skubal is a much better pitcher. His strikeout to walk ratio is borderline setting records. So I do think that Scoop's going to be the starter there. I think he deserves it. So it could be 4 all-star starters for your Detroit Tigers. And also I don't even know how the voting works. I mean, is this only by voting, or like is there like a committee that also decides half of it and half it's voting? Like I was always too lazy to even look at that because I feel like they change that shit up all the time.
Yeah, it's so there's different phases. So fans can vote up to 5 times per 24-hour period on all 30 MLB club sites and MLB app. And then beyond the top vote getter.
Just votes? Like only votes matter?
So beyond the top vote getter in each league, the top 2 vote getters at each position and the top 6 outfielders get it. Will advance to phase 2, which begins June 30th. And then they don't go into any information on what happens in phase 2. So as long as you get to phase 2, I don't know. We'll have to see. It's a crapshoot from there.
All right, yeah. Well, go out and vote regardless. But yeah, it's looking good for a lot of Tigers to be in the All-Star game. Makes sense. Best team in baseball. They're going to get a lot of representation. So yeah, it's sweet.
Yeah, it'll be fun to actually watch the All-Star game and have, see our guys out there maybe. And they do a lot of cool things with Mike and the guys out there in the outfield and stuff like that. So hopefully we can get some of our guys, get some air on the guys and get some eyes on Detroit Tigers for the second half of the season as we kind of get through there. So.
Are we gonna have a guy in the home run derby? I mean, I feel like we don't have any guys that are hitting like crazy amount of dingers, but I mean, Torque, is he close enough? I mean, I don't, probably not, but who knows?
Let me just take a look real quick. I don't think so. Just because I know Cal Riley, I think that's how you say his name. The rookie catcher is hitting like 33 home runs. Aaron Judge is obviously up there. They haven't listed any list or anything that I've seen on who could possibly get, who's leading I can't remember who's.
Cal Riley's in his like 5th season, by the way. Yeah.
Is he? I swear he was a rookie.
No, he's not a rookie.
Well, he's not Detroit sports, so I don't care. Yeah, they don't have any. I don't see any numbers on who could be in that, be in it for Detroit. You would have to assume it maybe would be Torque. Kerry's been really struggling, and honestly, I don't even want Kerry in the All-Star game just because he's struggled with his hamstring injury in general. Like, don't participate in any of that. Maybe so. It'd only really be Torque or Riley. So I guess maybe you could put one of them in there, but I'm just happy to get them out there for the game.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm just looking at it, and yeah. I mean, we're looking at like Aaron Judge, Ohtani, Schwarber's going to be in it. So yeah, I don't think our guys are quite good enough to be in the home run derby. That'd be sick otherwise, yeah. But
yeah, which checks
at least
out.
we don't have like a Brandon Inge situation on our hands, which is good.
All right, we have just a few more things to kind of wrap up with. We have some Michigan State College hoops news, and then we'll wrap up with Grit of the Week. So a few weeks ago, you and I went through both the Michigan and the Michigan State basketball rosters, the additions that they were seeing, anyone they were losing, and then what we thought was going to be both teams' possible starting 5 and kind of rotation, that second unit as well. Michigan State unfortunately got the devastating news that their roster and their starting 5 is going to be kind of flipped on its head because Caleb Glenn's first season at Michigan State after transferring from Florida Atlantic is being shut down before it even got started. So Caleb Glenn went down with a patellar injury. He is going to be out for the year. At first was just rumored out on Twitter and then ended up being confirmed. So Caleb Glenn, let me just pull up his numbers real quick. So Caleb Glenn last year for the Florida Atlantic Owls, 6'7" sophomore, averaged 12.6 points, 4.8 rebounds, 0.6 assists, 53% from the field. But where he was really going to help out the Michigan State Spartans was that he shot 41% from three after losing Trey Holloman and Jace Richardson. The Spartans really didn't have any known three-point shooters on the roster. Caleb Glenn was going to come in and kind of be that along with Trey Fort. You and I kind of went back and forth on whether the first team would include Caleb Glenn. We both decided that by the end of the season, Caleb would most likely be in that starting five unit just because he brings an element that we didn't have really across anyone else. Maybe you could say Jackson Kohler. I was saying that even opening night, he should be in that starting lineup. So immediately Michigan State is already down one of their top guys. And just before when we started recording, you and I were talking, I truly think like Caleb Glenn going down with an injury, that's probably the third worst person you could have go down with an injury for this team. Number one and number two being Cohen Carr, just because he's looking like he's taken that next step. His athletic ability is insane. Hopefully maybe he's been able to refine his offensive game and his shooting a little bit. And then the other guy would obviously be Jeremy Fears, the point guard, the general there. Those being the only two more important guys on this team, in my opinion, that we didn't absolutely needed this year. And unfortunately, the Spartans are going to be without Glenn coming up for this upcoming year.
Yeah, this is really, really, really bad. I mean, the team is already on the verge of being pretty mid on paper, at least. And, you never know what's going to happen. They were projected to finish like 6th or 7th in the Big Ten last year. They ended up winning it. So you don't know how a season's going to play out. But at least on paper, it wasn't looking great. They don't have a lot of talent. They lost two very key contributors through the draft and through the portal. Didn't really bring in that much talent. The best guy that they brought in was Caleb Glenn, and I was really excited to see him play. Like you just said, Tyler, he's a bigger guy who can spread the floor out. He can get to the rim and he can also shoot. I think that he would have been very, very pivotal for this roster. Maybe not starting, on day one, but I do think he would work his way into the starting rotation very, very quickly. So the fact that he's out for the season, we're sitting here June 25th now. I just think that, it's way too late to bring in another guy. It's not like you can just say, oh, let's throw some NIL money. We can get someone else in there. Everyone else is already on rosters. It's too late for that shit. Yeah, no, this is bad. And I think this team is really on the verge of being, mid, if not worse. And I think you mentioned it, Tyler. But yeah, I mean, the turning streak might even be on the line. I look at this roster and it's not good enough. It's not deep enough. And there's not enough shooting. So yeah, I mean, panic button. It's being hit by me.
Yeah, so last year the Spartans shot 31.1% from three, which was terrible. But then going into this past offseason, we lost 82.5% of our made three-pointers from the squad last year. So Glenn, who shot 41%, was, desperately needed. We don't return a single player who had at least 20 triples last year. So we brought in Trey Fort. It's going to help, but it's definitely not going to get it done in the sense that we're going to need a lot of guys to step up. So we're going to need guys like Cam Ward to step up. Jordan Scott, these freshmen that are coming in are probably going to play a bigger role because we're going to be down a few guys. And then it is important to know, I think I saw that Caleb Glenn is going to be going for his medical red shirt. So, it's not a year lost for the Spartans. We will look to have him for, an extra year after he is back and healthy. But yeah, there's a lot on the line this upcoming season. You thought maybe we wanted, there was a lot of guys out there we laid out that we could go get. Izzo went with his guys, which you can argue with or you can't, whatever you want to do. But it seemed like maybe we were going to be okay. And yeah, the panic button is fully pressed on my side as well. So we'll see. We'll see. We've seen, like you said, we were kind of expecting them to be a lot worse last year, and they pulled it out. If some of these guys made some huge leaps in this offseason, maybe they'll do their best. But, you top that with the Boilermakers being a favorite to win the championship, the Wolverines being easily one of the top teams in the nation. The Spartan days are pretty dark at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see. At this point, make the tournament and rebuild, reload, and come back, real strong for that, 2026, 2027 season. But yeah, for now, it's not looking too great.
Yeah. So let's wrap up the show. Let's get to our final segment, Grit of the Week. You wanna kick us off here?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a guy who we talked about. Going with a Tigers player who just had a stellar month of June. It's Riley Green. You bat 360 for an entire month, OPS over 1, and you bat in 19 RBIs, and you're winning Grit of the Week for me. So yeah, I mean, he's He's going to be an all-star, excuse me, all-star. Riley Green, left field, just really had a tremendous season after, starting slow, and there was some people that were panicking, and yeah, he's just been an all-star ever since. So for me, grit of the week, Riley Green.
Yeah, Riley, I mentioned it when we talked about the Tigers. It's interesting that he does strike out so much. You did a great job walking us through the mechanics of that, why it makes sense. But he leads the team position players WAR with 2.6. He's been just on an absolute tear, hitting 370 the last 14 days, 4 home runs. So, and like I said, barreling towards his second All-Star appearance. My grit of the week is going to stay on the diamond as well, and that's going to be someone that I always thought, I remember looking back at him as a prospect saying I think he was in a high A, saying maybe he might be someone that we need to start keeping an eye on, and that's Wencel Perez. Wencel Perez came up last year, really aided in the playoff push towards the end of the season, and I feel like he kind of got, not forgotten about, but kind of maybe his work was diminished a little bit just because everyone was playing so well in that playoff stretch there. You had the Kerry Carpenter home run that we already alluded to, everyone playing so well, and then he went down in the offseason and was coming back. At least from my opinion, everyone was saying well, Wencel's coming back soon, and I was I don't really remember him being that great. Wencel's been awesome since coming back from Detroit. Since coming back from the IL, he's hit 6 home runs. He's a switch hitter, so he's hit 3 from left-handed batting, 3 from right-handed batting, which helps Detroit immensely because we seem to have lost our left-handed killer in Andy Ibanez. And, after missing out on the Alex Bregman sweepstakes and stuff like that, Andy Ibanez went down, and Wencel Perez has been the absolute godsend for this team. Just 78 plate appearance, and he has his 6 home runs. He continues to just hit from both sides of the field, or both sides of the plate, I should say, and has been a really good young piece on this team that I don't think a lot of people outside of Detroit actually realize how well he's actually playing.
Love it. Yeah. He's been sick. I think I probably said it a couple times how much I love this kid. He's super young too, which is awesome. I think he's 24 years old. So yeah. Congrats on the grit of the week.
Yeah, so him and Riley, you guys can share that. If we ever get actual physical awards, we can send it to you guys and you can show it out in the dugout. But the last thing we do need to mention before we wrap up here, we did get the results from our snake draft, or Mount Rushmore, I should say, of the number one things at a ballpark, or ballpark things, the things that make you think about summer baseball and ballparks. We put it out on, you can go back and listen to that. We put it out on socials. Last I checked, Kyle had a pretty commanding lead. And so I'm not going to be, have sour grapes. I'm not going to be mad about it. I still think I had the better picks. I think you absolutely had the number one pick, the best pick in the draft, and that was the Dippin' Dots in a mini helmet. Mm-hmm. Everyone I talked to just had mentioned how much of a great pick that was. Did people see that pick and just automatically vote for you and didn't look at the rest of the drafts? I don't know. But congrats to you. You jump out to a commanding 2-1 lead in our snake draft Mount Rushmore era of the podcast.
Yeah, I don't know if it's commanding, man. It's been really tight. I think all three have been super tight, but yeah, it's this one feels good. We took a day to celebrate. Now we're on to the next one. So I'm very much looking forward to our next snake draft, Mount Rushmore, whatever you want to call it, because yeah, the dog days of summer are coming up, and so we need some fun things to do on the pod. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a battle, man. So we're not getting cocky.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. Dog days of summer are coming. We got some good things coming up with the free agency for the Pistons, the NBA draft, and some college football stuff as we get into the summer. But there's definitely going to be some weeks that we're a little bit lacking on the Detroit sports arena there. So if you guys have any ideas for Mount Rushmores that pertain to Detroit sports, any snake draft stuff like that, you can send us out to us at our social media. You can reach out to Kyle or myself and let us know anything you guys want to hear. I got to get back in the win column. It's actually 2 in a row for you. I started out hot 1-0, and then this is actually 2 in a row. So if you guys have any ones that you think maybe you could cater more towards me, that would be even better. So please send us those, and we'll try and get you guys one every few weeks. Like I said, and as soon as we kind of have a lull in the Detroit sports news arena, we'd like to throw this together for you guys. So okay. That's our show. Thank you guys for tuning into this week's episode. You can find Kyle on Twitter at Kyle_Marino. You can find me on Twitter at Dutton_Tyler, and at both Piston Powered and Champaign Athletics. You can follow the podcast itself on Instagram at Gridiron Report, on Twitter at Gridiron Report 1. You can watch us on YouTube, just Gridiron Report, and also on TikTok at Gridiron Report as well. That's where we're going to be putting up all those snake drafts, Mount Rushmore, stuff like that. We have a bunch of small clips and stuff from our shows, so go follow us on all those forms of social media. Finally, you can join the conversation next week by calling into the Gridiron Report voicemail for us to play and discuss on the pod. That number is 313 306-7939. And if you like this episode, please take a moment to rate it 5 stars, leave a review saying so. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the podcast, whether you listen to that on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate you guys doing that. So thank you for listening.
Thanks, y'all. Restore the roar. Let's go Tigers.
Yeah. Every highlight's a journey, roads paved with fire, sweat, tears, and hustle that never expire. From the rookies on the rise to the old hands retire. Grit iron is the place for fans to conspire. Hustle on blast, beats thunder and loud. Champions are born from the roar of the crowd. The gridiron report where the stories are proud. Tune in, bring the heat, make it fandom a vow.